All right, so we're live. Welcome back to another segment of this Get to Know Our Athletes for the All-American Kettlebell Open. We have a special guest, Corissa. Is it Sivorot? I always mess that up, I feel like, but I've never heard you actually say it.
Yeah, Sivorot. Yeah.
Sivorot, okay.
hmm
Corissa Sivorot, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm grateful to have you
Thanks for having me.
on. If you want to get right into it, you could tell us a little bit about your kettlebell sport journey, how long you've been doing it, and how it's going so far.
Okay, so I started working with kettlebells in about 2010. My background was in hardstyle. So I took all the certifications to teach, and I
Mhm.
taught it from 2010 till about 2014, and that's where I discovered kettlebell sport, and it was kind of by accident. Um, so a local gym was doing a fundraiser competition, and it wasn't like a kettlebell sport competition. It was like, farmers carries, double rack squats, 3 minutes of five different exercises. And after I did that, the coach there told me that kettlebell sport existed. I was like, there's a competition coming up in May. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll check that out. So yeah, I kind of got into it not really knowing what it was. I did a few sessions with him and then went in and did a hard style set
Nice.
at a sport event. So like
Hmm.
I was totally green, and of course like snatch fell apart because snatching for 10 minutes, hardstyle snatch, doesn't really last that long. Grip goes. Yeah, and so just from there, I fell in love with the competitive atmosphere, more like for myself. Like I kind of like as an adult, right? You For me, I was looking for, something to set my sights on, like a goal, and kettlebell sport provided me that.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I've been competing ever since. So it's been 10 years since I've been competing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've done multiple world championship competitions and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I went to Ireland in 2015. That's when it was snatch only for women. Um, and at that point, that was the lift that I liked the most. I felt jerk was super awkward. So I wasn't really even looking into that anyways. And then 2017, I went to South Korea.
Oh wow.
And then I guess was it 2022, Portugal, and then 2023, Hungary. Yeah, so those are the world events I've been to. Yeah.
Nice. That's really awesome.
hmm
Uh, Now you're like a huge triathlon athlete, right? You do a lot of
mm
tries, right?
hmm Yeah, so a coach that I was working with for about 4 years, he did triathlons, and that kind of inspired me to get into it as well. So I started competing triathlon in 2017, 2018.
Nice.
I like all the events. I like the challenge of doing all three events in one day.
Mhm.
But now, like working with the heavier weights, like I did compete in triathlon with the 24s. It was crushing. Training for it and competing in it is pretty crushing for me still at this point. So I've, in recent years, more focused on one event at a time. I
And
can
that
get away.
was, oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I
Go
said I
ahead.
can get away with it with the 20s, but the 24s are a different story.
And we're talking 10-minute triathlon lifts, right?
Yeah.
With the
Yes. Yes.
24s. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to work my way up to the 24s.
Yeah. It
It's
takes time.
yeah, definitely.
hmm
How are I know talk about how Nikolai convinced you to come down to the All American. I remember I reached out to you maybe a month and a half ago, and you said you wasn't going to be able to make it. And then maybe 2 weeks later, Buffy told me, "Hey, I think Carissa's coming," and I was like, "What? For real? Oh my God, yes!"
Uh, well, I've been talking to Nikolai just about our competition, and then I'd seen him up here for Sully's competitions in Nanaimo. I have a tendency as a lifter to kind of register for too many events. And so over the last couple of years have pulled back, just knowing that like I need more time to build to actually get the results I want at competitions. I can't compete every month. Anyway, so I had initially ruled this one out. It's further away for me to travel, getting time off work, all that stuff. And it is in the middle of my training cycle for our event in November. But just chatting with Nikolai, he's like, just come down, you could stay with Buffy. And I was like, well, if I can manage it on my points, if I can fly on my points, then yeah, I'll make it work. And so anyways, I came home that night and I looked, I'm like, I'm within 1,000 points of flying there. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a sign. So yeah, it was a spontaneous decision. Yeah, it should be fun.
Well, I'm glad that his convincing powers was able to grab you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how we talked about you being in the middle of a training cycle.
Mhm.
How's the All-American gonna fall there? So
So
how are you preparing?
I'm going to be lifting the 20s there
Hmm.
at the All American Open. So I'm still training to lift the 24s at our event.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to be in like my ideal speed for where I want to be with the 20s, because anytime I work with the 24s, it does slow me down. And even though you can say like, oh, well, the 20s are lighter than the 24s, anytime you go up in weight, your body kind of gets into that pattern and that groove for a slower tempo. So I'm trying to finish my sets or do one set a week where I'm working some speed so that I still kind of have that in me. Um, but yeah, it's a challenge no matter what the weight. The 20s are never easy, even though it will be a
Hmm.
drop in weight from what I'm training with. And I'm just hoping that the fitness from September 14th will still be there for me to
Hmm.
keep that speed with the 20s while I'm there.
Right.
Yeah.
So during a training cycle, are you train like okay, so you're training for a triathlon with 24s. Are you like 100% working with the 24s during that training cycle? Do you like progressively load to that and then work with it for maybe a month, or how long are you working with the 24s solely?
Hmm. So I'm actually doing biathlon only right now.
Okay.
Um, so I'm slowly building up time with the 24. So I started introducing them into my training program right after my competition in September. So I kind of had a week of deload and then I started to build again. And I'm just increasing time with them. Yes, I've done some like one-on-ones where I'm building up to work a complete 10 minutes, like one-on-one times 10. I'm not there yet in my training cycle. I'm
Mhm.
1-on-1 and 7. And then I'm working with the 20s and the 22s, and I'm slowly lengthening the time I'm working with the 24s. So right now, my longest set with the 24s has been 3 minutes.
Wow.
And so that will like increase as I go. And then the total training volume will eventually be working with the 24s for 12 minutes, but in interval style
Right.
until
That's
I
awesome.
until I actually lift them to compete. So I'm not solely training with them each
Hmm.
session. So like my session yesterday was 3 minutes 24s, 3 minutes 22s, 3 minutes 20s
Okay.
for double jerk.
Right. Hmm.
And then snatch. I'm snatching with the 24 one to two times a week.
Hmm.
And then the rest is either with 22, 20, or a glove snatch with the 12.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm working with a variety of weights.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So as the time goes on, like those threes and threes, eventually the 20s will drop off, and then the 22s will drop off, and then you'll be working with the 20.
Exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
total sense.
Yeah. And like I have to be very careful. I set myself back it's been almost a year and a half. I had a little bit of tendinopathy in my shoulder.
Mhm.
And that crept up working with the 24. It's just I have to be very careful with the volume and the load when I get
Mhm.
into that heavy weight and make sure that I've got the time and the recovery in between sessions. Um, it's just a different ball game with that weight for my body. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I won't be working with the 24s a ton until right after your competition.
Right.
Like I'm
Okay.
still introducing them, I'm still working with them, but like you said, right? Like I'm not doing 3 and 3 with the 24s right now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Giving your body the adaptation time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And you've done this so many times, it's like riding a bike, I'm sure.
Uh,
Does your body adapt pretty quickly over time? Like
I'm
given the
starting to,
10 years of competing, you know?
yeah, I mean, I'm starting to trust it more. Like anytime, I'm going to keep maybe reiterating this because this is a learning lesson for myself too. Is like the 24s are not the same like for me as any other weight I've lifted. So
Mhm.
like as much as it's like riding a bike, like I can feel that with the 16s and the 18s and the 20s and even to some aspects like the 22s. But once I
Mhm.
get to the 24s, it's like it's a whole different ball game. So um the build with it, and I just have to stay the course. Like there's a lot of
Mhm.
failure, right? Like
Of
I've got
course.
like a lot of crappy reps or not finishing the set or going too fast and not able to get them up overhead.
Mhm.
Um, so my body, yeah, it does adapt, but it's a lot slower.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
Speaking of a lot of failure, I wanted to bring up something like maybe 2 or 3 training cycles ago. I was on the 18 portion of my training cycle, and I failed the 10-minute set to progress to the 20s. And I remember you and I were talking about it online just briefly, and I was telling you I was disappointed, and you said something to me that still sticks with me, and I thank you for it. You said it'll be there next time. So simple, but you touched me with that, and I just want to tell you thank you for that. That
That's
just
awesome.
one piece of little inspirational advice.
Hmm.
It still sticks with me. So thank you.
Cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
Speaking of that advice, what is a piece of advice that you would give to a new lifter thinking about doing their first competition? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to trust the training. I would tell them that failure is just part of them growing as an athlete. It happens to all of us. I would tell them to find something that they love about the process and something to celebrate in their sets every time. Like if after you finish your set, even if it's a shitty set, try to find one piece of positive from there. Maybe like one thing you want to work on for next time, one thing that was successful, and it might have even just been like, I showed up today, right?
Hmm.
Because like you're not always going to have great training days. And if you let those uh, eat at you, you're not really going to make it through this because you're going to have a lot of those days.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then also just like respect the weight. I think a lot of new lifters come in and they think they see, I mean, it's amazing to watch great lifters because they make it look easy. You're like, oh, I could do that. Or if you come from like, for me, like I had that too, right? Like I came from a hard style background. So like I was snatching heavier bells, but I was snatching them for like 5 to 10 reps. And
Right.
it's different building up to endure a 10-minute set. So just like trust the process. Don't be afraid to stay light until you get it right, or light until you make the 10 minutes, and then build from there, and just know that you will get there. It's just going to take some time to get there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. Definitely sticking with the lighter weights is a piece of advice that I got from Joe Daniels. I'm sure you've heard of him, or you may even know
I
him.
follow them. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I reached out to him. I, I was gonna try to go to one of these world competitions for the ICAMF, and I've never
Hmm.
competed before, never done kettlebell sport before. And I reached out to Joe Daniels and I said, "Hey, how fast do you think you could get me trained up to go to the IKMF with 24s?" And he's like, "You've never done this before? You might need a little time, but it's like 2 months is like too soon." And I was like, "All right." So from there, we started at the 12s, and I started working my way up. So
Hmm.
and here we are, almost two years later, and I'm just now starting to think about, okay, maybe it's almost there. It's almost time to start
Hmm.
training for the 24s for a longer period. So
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome. It's kind of one of those things that's like, as a coach, sometimes it's like, I don't want to crush your goals, but
Right.
it might take 5 years.
Yeah. And it very well
Right? Like,
could.
yeah. I mean, like, I worked with Dennis in uh 2016. Anyways, I worked with him for almost a year, and I hired him because I wanted to snatch the 20 at the Canadian Nationals. And I messaged him, I told him like all my results, and I had, I hit like 190 something with the 16, and I had worked myself up to like keeping 12 RPM for 6 minutes with the 20. And I was like, here's all this stuff I want to snatch, in March. And I hired him in January. And he's like, okay. He's like, but you have to lift double bells, because I mean, I don't want people to take this as like, you're not an athlete unless you lift double bells. But this is what he said to me. He was like, real kettlebell athletes lift double kettlebells. And I was like, ah. I'm like, well, that's awkward. I find it pretty awkward to do two bells. And I was like, okay, I guess I got a jerk now. So, anyways, but it was kind of like really made me confront my ego, because his programming started with the eights.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've now done 6 minutes with the 20. What do you mean? So he took me through, like, I went down to the 8K and I did a cycle with the eights, and then the 10s, and then the 12s, and then the 16s, and then the 18s. And then I was finally touching the 20s, right? So like, I didn't get into double 20s with him, but like the 20 for snatch. But yeah, no, it was one of those like moments of like, oh shit, well, just trust the coach. And like, I'm really
Mhm.
glad and grateful that I had that experience, because it built a strong foundation for the athlete I am now.
Mhm. For sure.
Hmm.
Is Dennis the one that introduced you to like starting to get into the jerk and the long cycle and things like that?
Yeah, so I did one arm long cycle on my own when I was coaching myself. I did the 21 arm long cycle down at the ice chamber, which used to be like a gym filled with amazing kettlebell lifters, women,
Mhm.
but I think that they closed down. But anyway, so I went down there and I lifted one arm long cycle with the 20, because I wanted to do the 20 snatch, and I thought, because I hit rank with the 16, that I was ready to go to the 20, and I started lifting the 20, and I had some issues happening with my arm and my shoulder because I moved up too fast. I was like,
Mhm.
well, I want to lift a heavier weight. How can I lift a heavier weight? One arm long cycle. So
Mhm.
I could get away with it. One arm long cycle is closer to the body, right? So I had done like one arm long cycle, but Dennis was the one who got me into 2 arm events. I wouldn't
Mhm.
have, I mean, who knows? Would I, wouldn't I? Um, I don't, I guess I can't really say, but I wasn't going to start them on my own at that point.
Right.
And so, yeah, so he got me into the 2 arm stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's very straightforward, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very humble and a very sweet man, but he is
Yes.
straightforward. Hmm.
Yeah, which I appreciate. Like,
Of
I
course.
like the directness. I like to know. Yeah.
Yeah, when he talks about, competition day, you know, he's strict on the look, conserve your energy, but his words are pretty much you got to be cold-blooded that day, you're
Mm.
conserving your energy, you're not really talking to a whole lot of people, he's just straightforward about
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it.
Which is something that I'm actually looking forward to, not being like cold, but traveling to your event. Is that like, usually I'm at events like locally here, and like I love my team and all my lifters, but coaching and then trying to get everything you can out of yourself as an athlete and a lifter can be tough.
Hmm.
Same with like, you're running an event. Not to say it can't be done, but it
Yeah.
is it is take some energy, right? Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Hmm.
Nikolai actually suggested that in the beginning, he suggested that I don't lift because
Mm-hmm.
we're all going to be super busy, running everything.
Yeah.
But then I he kind of allowed me. He said, okay, because Nikolai's my coach, so
Hmm.
he's kind of like, okay, all right, you've already done like two competitions with the 20s. Just stick with the 20s, and that way you're comfortable and you can just try to gain your, get better numbers and whatnot. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it's going to be
Awesome.
tough, but yeah, we're going
Yeah.
to try to pull it off. And I'm going to do the, 20 kg biathlon. I think you and I are going to get to share a platform together.
Oh, awesome. That'll be fun.
We're on the same flight. That's awesome.
Cool. Cool.
And then I'm even going to participate in the one flight of pentathlon on Sunday. So it's going to
Oh,
be a lot of
great.
lifting, a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on. Yeah,
Yeah. 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 You'll do
but
it. Yeah.
I think so. I think we're
Yeah.
gonna have if we're gonna have fun doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah. 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 And like, hopefully you've got some good volunteers helping you out as well. Like there's so many people that are willing to
Mhm.
to to
Yeah,
to help. Yeah.
we had a lot of people sign up, and on our registration form, they got a discount if they were super volunteers. So yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people
Cool.
signed up for that.
Great.
They're going to be judging, helping, in every way they can. I'm sure that's the
Perfect.
beautiful thing about this community. Everybody just what I've noticed in the past couple of years is every event that I've gone to, been a part of, uh, the community is just something different. Everybody's
Totally.
just there for 100% for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
They like to help each other succeed, and everybody knows how hard it is, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, it's pretty supportive.
Yeah, for sure. On on game day, competition day, how do you stay mentally prepared? How do you mentally prepare? And then on competition day, how do you stay focused?
Hmm. So I really make sure that I try to get a good sleep the night before, which sometimes can be tough with like nerves and all that stuff. And then I have to really focus on making sure I eat enough, because nerves can also impact my appetite. And I've made
Mhm.
the mistake before. Um, and you're like 2 minutes into your set and you just feel your energy is just like, I didn't eat enough today. Drinking a lot of water. I usually do a really long warm up on competition day, and I just put headphones in, and I've got like some fairly like chill-ish music. And it's
Mhm.
not like I'm warming up hard. Like I'll do a bunch of mobility. Maybe if there's like a rower or a bike there, I'll just go gently on the bike or the rower. I'll lift a little bit. I'll come back, and I just do like, a 45-minute, maybe even like an hour where I'm back and forth, kind of just gently warming up my body to try to get into the headspace. And then
Mhm.
it also takes me away from like the energy of the event, because sometimes being there and cheering for everybody and people talking to you can also take me out of that headspace. And I also don't drink coffee on competition day.
Oh wow.
um
Is there any
because I
particular reason you don't intake caffeine?
too much anxiety.
Okay.
Like I can drink coffee like in my normal day, but like I found out if I drink coffee on competition day, it can be like the killer of the set. Like, because caffeine
Hmm.
also kind of can impact my appetite too. But like if I
Hmm.
got nerves and I layer caffeine on top of nerves, for me, not great.
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And it's
so yeah.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so I just avoid it because I've
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And all I was going to say is the answer that you gave is a pretty consistent answer across the board. Trying to remove yourself from the energy of cheering others on, from the energy of the competition, because that can pull like pretty much your energy from you. I've heard that now
Hmm.
multiple times in these interviews. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good takeaway.
Hmm. It's tough though, because like sometimes you miss sets that you really want to see, your lifters you want to cheer on.
Hmm.
So yeah, sometimes at a competition, I'm like, I didn't really watch anybody.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to be there for yourself as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another coach that I follow on Instagram, Two Nova Kettlebell.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
he speaks a lot about um, he wishes, he loves being a coach so much, and he gives so much of himself to his athletes that it actually takes away from his ability to perform himself. So
Definitely.
that's another big
Yeah.
one, I guess.
I've been
How do
like,
how do you find the
yeah,
balance? Because you're such a great athlete yourself. How do you find that balance?
I feel like I can with certain weights, but I feel with the 24s, I can't get away with it. So like I try to separate, and my team is always like, do what you need to do. But I still like, there's certain people that might need more support during their set. So like at this last competition, I was like warming up and then like down on my knees for a lifter that was just before me because I knew she needed someone to be there, like counting her through her reps, right? Like
Hmm.
I saw it in her face. I was like, so like I had my belt on, I was all like getting warmed up. And so I did sacrifice a bit of my warm up for that. And it took me a while, like in my set, because my set was right after that, to actually even feel like I was like getting into a pace. So
Hmm.
like I started out at like a 10 RPM pace for my first 2 or 3 minutes because like I hadn't even warmed up yet. And like I
Hmm.
knew, like I know on like a bad day, I can still eke out like a 12 RPM starting point.
Right.
And I was at a 10 and I was like, oh, what? I looked at the clock. I'm like, oh God, I'm going way too slow. But like I hadn't got into my body yet. Like
Hmm.
my breathing wasn't there. So I'm not perfect at it.
Hmm.
So
I
I don't know
remember
if
I
that.
remember reading your post competition about your set, and you had
Mm-hmm.
talked about starting a lot slower than you usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's why. And that's why.
yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of being able to like just power through a 12 RPM from start to finish and gaining reps through minutes. How long has it taken you to reach that milestone, especially with the 20s?
Yeah. It's funny because I also want to I got to look back at all my results and stuff, which I'm not the greatest at keeping records of stuff. I do have some, but I've been working with the 20s. My first competition with the 20s was 2018.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm new to the 20s.
Hmm.
My first competition with the 20s, I did 93 jerks and 100 and I don't know. I can't remember if it was 146 or 147 snatches.
Hmm.
So like people could be like, well, it took 6 years to like hit 133 from like if you actually look at like the reps that you gain over 6 years, like 30 something reps doesn't seem like a lot, but it is
Hmm.
when you're working with certain weights, right? And then the same like when I hit 200 snatching, which was a few years back, which I'm still building back up to. But like yeah, so I've been working with the 20s for 6 years.
Hmm.
But in that 6 years, I've taken time where I've worked with the 24s for a year. And then that
Hmm.
slows me down in pace.
Right.
And then you
And
kind of, then you, yeah.
I was going to say something about that too, about um, building the RPM, and when you go up in weight, it slows you down, like you said. How long?
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take to when you drop back down in weight? It's getting your body readapted to, okay, it's a lighter weight, but now you got to kind of get your body used to going faster with that weight, right?
Mm-hmm. Um, more recently, if I could it's, take something from that, is that so after my shoulder stuff, I really took it down and I didn't start seriously training again until last November. And so it took from last November until when was nationals? April until I was back to like my normal jerk pace with the 20s. And then it took from then until September to even get close to where my snatch number was. So almost like 6 months to a year.
Yeah, it takes time.
Um, it takes time. I mean, and I'm like everybody's different. Like I might
Mhm.
be normal, I might not be. I might be slower, I might be faster.
Right.
Than people, right? Like age is going to make a difference. Like I'm in my 40s now, right? Like so, um, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still trying to break the 100 mark with the 20s, and I'm hoping we can do it at this competition.
You'll
I'm
do it.
hoping. I think so.
Yeah,
I, this was a tough training cycle, but every milestone was hit beyond what I thought we were going to do. So I'm feeling
awesome.
I'm feeling really good about it.
Good.
Yeah. So
If I could give you one piece of advice, if you want
please,
it, take it
please,
or leave it.
always.
take it or leave
Always.
it. I would I would say from like all of my successful sets, the best sets that I've had have been when I've been focused on the relaxation aspect of the lift. I don't know if that's something that you do or like clicks for you, but like
Hmm.
yeah, when you focus on those little pieces where you can relax,
Hmm.
those tend to be for me my best
Hmm.
sets, and my body just does its thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying my best to find as many relaxing points in the lift as I can. And especially
Hmm.
coming into the lift, I'm trying to, bring myself, like you said earlier, get into my body. I'm trying to
Yeah.
bring myself to the present moment and, take a couple of them extra deep breaths and really be present before I even start. Yeah,
Hmm.
dig that.
Yeah, you've been building yourself into a machine. Just like trust that you're you can do it, right?
Hmm.
Your body's going to do what it's trained for.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
What are your goals? I know we're mid cycle for you, but what are your goals for the All American?
Mm, I'm trying not to. I'm
You trying
trying
to?
not to like like I don't want to set some expectation and not be able to fill it, but I'm also
Hmm.
one of those people that like I don't want to like aim my sights too low and then be like so I would like to be sitting around where what I hit in September.
Hmm.
But like I just recently did a longer snatch with the 20 and my pace isn't where it was
Hmm.
in September. So we'll kind of see what happens. So yeah, I'd like to be hitting somewhere in the high 120s for jerk and somewhere in the 190 to 200 for snatch would be
Nice.
my goal. Yeah.
Hmm. Are you've broken the 200 rep mark with the 20s before on the snatch?
Yeah,
Hmm.
a few times.
Pretty
Yeah.
often, or
Again, I'm terrible at really keeping
yeah.
record of things, but I have at least twice.
Hmm.
Um, maybe three times actually. I did it. I did it at the first time I broke the 200 is when I did a 5 minute long cycle with the 24s at a competition, and then I finished with a 20K snatch.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I did, yeah, the 5 minute because I was in the middle of a training cycle for that. So I just did 5 minutes and then yeah, I hit 203 or 204. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I also hit over 200 when I do you know the story of Adrian Apollo? The Apollo
No.
bells? So Apollo bells that Nikolai um developed and is selling
Hmm.
and produced. That
Please tell it.
he was a lifter from the Seattle Kettlebell Club.
Hmm.
Big energy, like everybody's like biggest support. Every time I saw him at a competition, he was like, he's just the guy. He's like someone that you gravitate towards. Yeah, just an amazing person and an amazing lifter. And he passed away in 2020, it must have been because it was during COVID. So we did a virtual lift all over Zoom, and all the lifters that knew him through, like, Canada and the States all logged on, and we all did a 10-minute set in his honor. And in that 10-minute set, I, I, I did 2-0 something, 203 or 204. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Apollo
Yeah.
was a Nikolai has told me that story, and Apollo was a military vet as well, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, that's a pretty inspiring story for it to be what his bells are.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Mhm. Now, I know we got your last minute for the All American. Um, can we talk about what what does participating in the All American mean to you, and how do you think it's going to participate or contribute to your growth as an athlete?
Anytime I travel to an event, it helps me grow as an athlete. I mean, being around amazing competitors, meeting amazing competitors and athletes, being out of my comfort zone, different time zone, different bed, you know, all these things, I think only helps me grow as an athlete. And, you know, sometimes you can be pretty comfortable. Like, it's pretty cool because on the island here, we have someone else that runs competitions as well, and then Northern BC. So, like, I'm really comfortable in their gyms and lifting with all the people I always lift with. So
Hmm.
just having that opportunity to be around, you know, lifters that I know from Instagram,
Hmm.
or social media, and then others that are amazing lifters is just gonna, you know, inspire me to do better, and, you know, give me that opportunity to see what I can do in a space that I don't really know very well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah, and like things that I can't control,
Hmm.
which I think
And
is all
some
great, good for an athlete.
absolutely. And sometimes you
Yeah,
shine the best in those situations.
let's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
Carissa, um, let's talk about like services that you offer. If you do online training, you can give your gym a shout out. I know you're a co-owner of a gym. You can talk about all that stuff, and if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
okay. Yeah, so I do online coaching,
Mhm.
kettlebell sport coaching. So you can reach me through my Instagram or Facebook, or you can send me an email. And then I also coach out of the West Shore warehouse. So I co-own that with my business partner, Tim, and we do strength and conditioning classes. And then we've got our kettlebell club that meets 3 days a week, and we do training there, um, which is awesome to be able to train in person with a group as well. We do have a few participants from Saskatchewan that log on, and we do that class over Zoom as well. So it's in person, and then we have our Saskatchewan lifters that log on and will follow along. So that's always an option too if people are
Nice.
looking for, you know, a class option and they can't attend in person.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. I might actually
Mm,
check that out. How do
yeah.
you get into that?
We can chat, but
Okay.
I'll send you a Zoom link. It might be too
Hmm.
late for you. It's 6:30 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, but maybe the Sunday works 10:30 a.m. on Sundays.
Oh yeah.
And
Hmm.
yeah, so I just give you a code, you log in, and then we've got our workout of the day. There's a few people that do, like, I'll personalize their programming for them as well. So some
Hmm.
people are following a different time, but if you're doing what the class is doing, I'll take you through a warm up. We'll do our mobility, sport specific prep, and then whatever our workout of the day is, that will include GPP as well.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'll definitely try out a Sunday class.
Yeah. That should be fun.
Yeah. Carissa, thank you so much for doing this interview. I'm grateful that you got on the line with me, and I can't wait to meet you in person and share a platform with you.
Likewise. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Excited to come and see all of the lifters and cheer everybody on.
Yes, ma'am. All right, I'll see you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.